First of all, where are we? We are in Greenville, South Carolina. That's somewhere in the southeast. We are actually on a research campus. So it's not just a building, it's actually 250 acres dedicated to automotive engineering, and still a lot of that has to be developed. I mean, we are only, I would say only 4 years, or actually 5 years in operation. This building is a graduate school and it doesn't look like a school. It is meant to be as a building for collaboration. It's never meant to be just a square box. And it's really meant to be a building for what we call interdisciplinary collaboration, because the car of today is not a mechanical piece anymore. It's computer science, it's human factors, it's software, it's hardware, infrastructure. It's much more than just a car. It's a mobility product. So systems integration for us goes a little further, because if you look at the vehicles today, they're actually connected. So understanding the opportunities and the challenges with that is just as important as building the engine. Because just remember what might happen in the future, that we really, this is a connected piece of mobility and it's not just a vehicle anymore going from A to B. Development. So how do you teach graduate students to build a car? Is there a book out there? No. So when I came to the Institute about 4 years ago and they asked me, how do you teach students to build a car? And said, we can only do that when we build a car together. So what we decided to do about 3 years ago was really disruptive in education. And we said, we're going to build a car together as students, and that lasts 2 years. We're going to do the same thing that industry does in 6 years. We're going to compact that in 2 years, and while you're there, you're going to apply and learn how to do this. So when students enter our program, the first thing they do is really looking into marketing, market analysis, and develop a value proposition for a future customer. These projects are mostly sponsored either by an OEM or a consortium of people, and there is a brand also in the background. So understanding the brand, understanding the market is one of the most important things while creating the value proposition. But during this course of this project, that lasts 2 years, students are actually collaborating together with their own disciplines. So the chassis specialist has to work with the powertrain specialist, has to work with the body and white specialist, has to work with the manufacturing person and actually create this product over 2 years. So the final prototype of the product is actually a drivable vehicle. And I'll show you a little later that we have a lot of full-size testing equipment in the building where actually the targets or the performance of this vehicle is validated, and that's graduation time. If the vehicle doesn't fulfill the targets, it's almost like you can't graduate. Partnerships is important. We cannot do this without industry partners, and we could not do this without SEMA. SEMA is just as much involved in this project as our Tier 1, Tier 2, and OEMs and suppliers, as are entrepreneurs and new startup companies. And these companies all work with the students during these 2 years, basically also mentoring the students. It's just as important as me telling the students you do it this way. It's actually even more important if they have a video conference every 2 weeks with a company and they tell, well, did you think about this and why don't you think about that? It's real world. So I discussed marketing. We have access to marketing databases just like SEMA has. Our students are actually doing the data mining themselves to really give them also that feeling what it is to actually work for a customer and develop something for a customer other than yourself. Because that's the first thing they want to do. They want to build a sports car for themselves, and that's only a one-off. But you also have to be able later in life to say, you're going to develop the minivan. That's real world. I mean, you cannot have always your sports car dream. Also creating desirability, so why buy a car? I mean, this is really an open end. I'm not going to tell them exactly what they need to develop. Creating that value proposition and having them think about why should you buy this vehicle is just as important. This was an example that I show on the slides here that we did from Mazda. Engineers think different than designers. So having actually engineers and designers work together, that's a new challenge. And we teamed up with Art Center, College of Design in Pasadena with transportation design. And they're actually having about 15 of their students work together with our students on this project. So it's actually creating that left brain, right brain interaction, because it's also of value to an Art Center student. instead of making art, it actually becomes a car that is drivable, that fulfills legislation, and actually something you can sit in. And it used to be something that you hang on the wall and you graduate at art centers. So this is really a valuable experience for them as well. We've done this now a couple of times. It was at the SEMA show this year, if you have seen it. It's actually a sports car from Mazda. It's a 6-seater, it's a hybrid, and it's actually built quite differently, quite disruptively. What we offer is a platform for collaboration. So you see here Joe Gross from Kicker developing a new sound system. And Joe is basically in heaven because now he can determine where his speakers wants to be and what he wants to do. So that opportunity for Joe, but also for the students to learn from Joe and learn what Kicker is doing is so valuable for them. You can hire who understand this world, who understand to think differently, work for your companies. They don't like to go to Detroit and go back to the old world. They like to do something new and different, just like Jay said this morning. So we've done this now 3 times. The top right, number 3. And number 5, we were really proud actually that General Motors signed up. So we're actually building and engineering a vehicle for a young generation, Generation Z. And again, it's white sheet paper, and it's really different because we all know that this generation is basically every hour on this device. And driving a car is a distraction. If they can avoid driving a car and stay connected and be with their friends 24/7, they would do it. So how can you create a similar lifestyle in a vehicle? So we're working right now with Art Center and our students on creating that value proposition, and that value proposition really is intended to create a mobility lifestyle. It's not a vehicle, it's a lifestyle. It's a product that is highly customizable, and you see the word co-creation at the bottom. Only a certain amount of this vehicle will actually be created by General Motors. The rest will be done by the aftermarket to create that lifestyle. So this is really exciting. Something that Scion started a long time ago, but now General Motors all of a sudden picks up because they believe that this might be an opportunity to capture this young generation. So in the first floor of the building, there's a full-size chassis dyno, but every piece of equipment that I will show you right now is available to SEMA members. Is available to SEMA members for also a discounted rate. And we can work that on together, what that exactly is and for what duration. The equipment includes a staff member that can operate this equipment, and it might even include a student that wants to actually work on a project for you. How many of you have seen a 7-post shaker in a climate chamber? There are not that many around in the world. So again, this is a very unique combination, and it was actually driven by BMW because there's only one that BMW has in Munich, and they wanted one like this in South Carolina for their manufacturing location. Engine dyno, something you probably don't find that easily accessible. South Carolina measurement machine. We even have a solar chamber. This is the only one in the US. I was actually shocked to hear about that because stuff like this is quite often used in Europe for interior components. Virtual tools, we've heard a lot about it this morning. At an advantage that we have access to all those tools because these software companies want our students to work with these tools so that they're ready to go in industry. The tools that we have are available. If you only need to have access to it for a day or two, come by and actually purchase it yourself. And really working with the SEMA partner on site. That was also one other thing that we did in this particular case. So we are at the point where we're actually going to increase our collaborative effort between SEMA partners, and Clemson University. And we will make an announcement, I think, soon about that we are going to extend our involvement in the vehicle dynamics area. Basically, it's all kinds of active control systems in the car that might be impacted by your components. The other area that we're really going to start up new is the whole emission and calibration of engines and staying in compliance. This is a huge issue with the EPA and the CARB basically looking after each SEMA member and see if you still are in compliance. This is not an easy component because you basically, whatever you tweak and tune on your vehicle, you have to have an understanding exactly what happens in terms of emissions, regulated emissions and fuel economy. and we will actually build up a new lab for that. Again, for you SEMA partners to really work with us on developing your product. So there will be a transient emissions and fuel economy lab. That's basically already part of the equipment that we have. It's the chassis dyno and the engine dyno. We will just have additional emission analysis equipment there to really support you. And in terms of the vehicle dynamics, we will set up a hardware in the loop lab where we actually will work with the simulations tools, with the ECUs on the table, and actually be able to do virtual product development for you.